So let's talk about arrest records versus convictions records. Because employers are only concerned about convictions. Supposed to be. Shouldn't be asking about arrests. We're all clear on that, right? What's the difference between an arrest and a conviction? Somebody tell me.
You get picked up for a traffic violation and somebody else used your name and it's not you, you can prove it's you, and then you have that initial arrest, but it's not you, so you never got thrown out.
Yeah, right. You never got sentenced, convicted, found guilty of, right? So that's an example. Another example of an arrest record is you get arrested and the case gets dismissed. It doesn't amount to a conviction. Well, it may still show up on your CBI report. So, CBI records check.org or com. Sorry, I don't know that off the top. CBI records check.com for that $7 background check is a valuable investment. So, arrest records may be unreliable. That's one of the reasons why they're not being used. They shouldn't be used. Convictions are only supposed to go 7 years back if it's ran by a third party. So most companies contract out with someone to do their background checks, right? If that's the case, those third-party consumer reporting agencies, which is the same agencies that maybe pull our credit for like lending institutions, they're held to the same rules. They're only supposed to go 7 years back. Does that always happen? No. So we need to be clear when we're working in back to the business development, job development. How clear are you with those employers that you're working with about what their background checks? And here's the thing, and I'm not afraid to tell clients this as a means and mode of encouraging them and giving them confidence. A lot of times, the HR person has their hiring matrix, that yes, no, red, green thingamajig that gets sent to them from the back. They don't know all the details about the offenses. They don't. And so our clients usually go in to an interview more informed than the HR person is about the type of offenses they have. And that can work for them, and that can work. How might it work against them, Sheila?
Because they share too much information.
Right. What does that look like?
That looks like somebody saying that, hey, I was incarcerated, that's why I left my last job.
Right. Right. Once again, we're talking about convictions. Does a conviction necessarily mean time in prison or jail? Does it mean that? No. You get convicted and go home. You get probation. So when our clients are assuming that because they say that they check yes to that they've got to go in and disclose they're in jail, they're doing themselves an injustice. And that's kind of back to that question we looked at earlier. Does a conviction, well, let me rephrase this. What about probation and parole? Does a conviction automatically assume you're on probation and parole? You get time served. So we're trying to get to the root. Where do we start coaching our clients at who have offenses? At the conviction. At the conviction. Depending on their circumstance, we may have to go into details. I'll tell a client in a heartbeat who has a 3-year employment gap because they were in jail, came out and did an inpatient program, went back to jail, came out and did it, or then did an inpatient program, and now they're sober. To be in that interview, I'll coach them, Bonnie, to say, you know what? You're right, Mr. Employer. It has been a while since I've worked. But over the last 3 years, I've been focused on maintaining my sobriety and rebuilding my family. I talk about being in jail. It may have implied that I was in rehab, or I was in a substance abuse program, or I was getting some type of help for my addiction. But I didn't go into details about that. And if we can coach a person to say that with confidence, all of a sudden you skew to the side what was going on in 3 years. Sure, 2 of them may have been in jail, and 6 months in the inpatient program, but I was trying to get my stuff together then. And I've got 6 months of sobriety to prove it. How does that work? Right? Is that something you think you can do with your clients? Or to help the folks who are working with those clients do? Coach them through that? We'll look at a couple more specifics here. So I'm trying to get back to it. Start at the conviction first. That's all we should be talking about on applications and in interviews.
I had a client that asked me, they hadn't worked in 10 years, and they had been doing drugs and had been clean for 18 months, and asked me, what do I put down? And I said, that you had a medical condition that is no longer an issue.
Good. Great point. It's awesome. Because addiction is not a criminal issue.
Right.
It's a health issue.